let's talk about Russia. It is a false flag time. So the Russian Defense Ministry has issued a troubling warning that something big is about to happen in Ukraine. Now, Ukraine has been bombing its own grain storage facilities over the past few months. You know this. The mainstream media has been ignoring this story, of course, but if you've been following us here on this show, we cover this news. Now Russia is warning of a major false flag attack coming from the Ukraine military around grain facilities, grain infrastructure. So you're hearing it. Now we'll see if it happens, like Nord Stream pipeline or the Crimean Bridge, right? The Kirk's Bridge. So the Joint Coordination Headquarters of Russian Federation for Humanitarian Response in Ukraine just issued this emergency statement saying that the SBU, the secret police of Ukraine, are going to be responsible for a large-scale attack in the next few days to discredit Russia's activity with the grain deal. Okay, food, grain deal, and to be accused of creating a shortage of food in Ukraine. This is the plan that apparently they've uncovered. Western media has been ignoring these war crimes attacking the food infrastructure since the beginning of this war. Again, we've been covering it. Eva Bartlett, a great independent journalist, friend of the show, she has been covering it. She's been documenting the Severodonetsk region. Of course, here is an example. Here's photos that she took after Ukrainian shells destroyed the grain infrastructure, burned it to a crisp, and destroyed it. So, hey, food supply destroyed. And so the car... Go ahead.
I was going to say, that's what peace looks like. I was wondering what peace looked like.
That's part of Zelensky's 10-part peace plan. Blow up our own food and then blame it on Russia so that they are accused of war crimes.
I think he meant pieces. His pieces plan, not...
Pieces of bread plan. So the Ukrainian intelligence service is planting mines in granaries. And then after its explosion, according to the Russian Ministry of Defense, the Russian Federation will be accused of allegedly intentional elimination of grain stocks in Ukraine. I'm quoting them now. Sparking starvation, they say, and therefore, quote, disrupting the grain deal. Western media will present this incident as, quote, another atrocity committed by Russian forces that requires a, quote, harsh response of the international community, the United Nations, etc., NATO response. A group of up to 30 Ukrainian professionals in explosives and employees of the security service of Ukraine arrived in the Kharkov region for preparing for this sabotage, according to the Russian Ministry of Defense. Again, take this with a grain of salt, if you'd like. The granary is owned by V. Uvarvov, a non-staff employee of the security service of Ukraine. So it's owned by the SBU. There's also identification data for the chief of the group and all of its members, as well as their current location that they've been tracking. So they know exactly where they are. So we'll see. In the wake of the Ukraine's army's failure and on the eve of the meeting of the NATO defense ministers in Ramstein, Germany on the 20th of January, these resounding provocations, they say, are being used by Ukrainian authorities to put more pressure on the opinion of Western countries for achieving large-scale supplies of modern armaments and hardware for the armed forces of Ukraine. The idea is show how bad Russia is in attacking its own people and its grain, the grain supply, and then that will further push Leopard tanks, further push Germany to send more armaments, further push Poland to do so, further push the United States and NATO to do so. So that's the plan. Again, these are the reports this afternoon. We'll see. But it'll be easy to track if this happens. But I kind of like announcing these false flags ahead of time, like we saw with the dirty bomb, and of course the reporting on that, by calling so much attention to it, and hopefully now independent media like us will likely cover it. I mean, we are covering it. I don't know who else is going to cover this story. But if the New York Times covers it, maybe the Washington Post covers it, then it's in the larger newspapers. And then maybe it's not likely to happen. Yeah. Because if it's out there, then this protects the grain supply, and then it's,
And then people don't starve. Good plan.
Yeah. So we can actually stop it by giving this story coverage.
Right.
Like that's a reason to do this story, because it might actually protect people. So, meanwhile, that's one part of this story. Meanwhile, what the hell is happening in Ukraine? Do you remember a few months ago when Russia attacked Poland and killed a bunch of Polish people? And Zelensky then immediately called for World War III and NATO to attack Russia. Remember this? Watch.
Вже поширюються на територію Молдови. А сьогодні російські ракети ударили по Польщі, По території нашої дружньої країни загинули люди. Прийміть, будь ласка, співчуття від усіх українських братів. Скільки разів Україна говорила про те, що нашою країною держава-терорист не обмежиться. Польща, держави Балтії – це питання часу, коли б російський терор пішов далі. Треба поставити на місце терориста. Чим довше Росія відчуває безкарність, тим більше буде загроз для усіх, кого можуть досягнути російські ракети.
Now, of course, that didn't happen, right? The Pentagon almost immediately said that it wasn't Russia, right? The Pentagon came out, to their credit, almost immediately. It was like, we don't have any confirmation of that. And then very, very quickly, independent journalists were able to confirm that immediately the shell was Ukrainian, was not Russian. So it turned out Ukraine had attacked Poland. And reports that I'm hearing are that Zelensky had to fly to the UK and actually apologize after this. Because there was even President Biden came out and was like, no, there's no evidence to support this. This was Ukrainian. So there was a lot of behind-the-scenes apologies.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wonder if his apology voice is a lot different. He's like, I am so sorry. Like, it's higher pitched. And
it's like, did you ever hear that, like, the Elizabeth Theranos, or is it a Theranos? Mm-hmm. Elizabeth Theranos?
Yeah.
Or is it, Elizabeth Theranos.
Talk like this.
Where she talked like, she was like, make drugs. And then when she was like private, like her voice was like much more like a woman. It's like that. Mm-hmm. It's like the acting, So that didn't happen. The Pentagon almost immediately shot that idea down. Journalists confirmed right away that this was not Russian. And so it turned out Ukraine had attacked Poland. We now know that was the case. It looks like the same thing happened this weekend in Dnipro. And this is, of course, again, Ozzy Peter in our chat room right now says, didn't Ukraine bomb its own apartments over the weekend and blame Russia? Yeah. So that's exactly what likely happened here. So you're looking at footage right now of what happened at this apartment complex. At least 29 people were killed. A missile struck an apartment building in Ukraine this weekend. Ukraine is officially had accused Russia of doing this and targeting civilians. But one of Zelensky's top aides, I think, let slip on this.
Yes.
So this is interesting, right? So Alesky Aristonovich came out, a senior advisor to Zelensky, and said that the Ukraine had shot down a Russian missile that landed on the apartment building, which has happened multiple times in Kyiv so far that they've said, where there's not even a Russian missile. They've launched these crappy old anti-aircraft weapons, and they've shelled, basically fallen with these old shells on their buildings, basically, is what happened here.
Yes, Arestovich immediately went on a podcast or a media appearance and said, well, yes, we were shooting down missiles and it landed on an apartment building. Now, the mayor of that town called him something like a filthy dog or something, shut your filthy mouth kind of thing. He was dogpiled. And then the Ukrainian military claimed in an official statement that it has no weaponry that would be capable of shooting down missiles, even though Zelensky on Saturday night admitted in a national address that the Ukrainian army had shot down more than 20 missiles in this raid. So it doesn't completely make sense that for them to say, we don't have the technology to shut down missiles like this, but we did shut down 20. Now they're kind of parsing out, well, this was a super fast one, and we don't have that super fast technology. We got 20 of the slow ones, thankfully.
Right.
But the super fast ones, we missed it and they bombed it themselves. So you can tell that this story doesn't pass the smell test.
No, something smells fishy with it. But at the heart of all of this, of course, is that the shelling continues on civilian infrastructure. I mean, all you need to do is follow the independent journalists who were there, like Eva Bartlett, Patrick Lancaster, Vanessa Beeley, and others, excellent journalists, Wyatt Reed, and others who watched with their own eyes as civilian infrastructure has been attacked. But now that, of course, the Ukrainian media is completely run by the state, right? Zelensky has gotten rid of any media that's not run by the state, gotten rid of opposition leaders. So this is the democracy that, of course, the West is fighting for.
Oh, he got rid of religious leaders just 2 weeks ago. He passported, he stripped religious leaders that were not
Christian,
Christian of their citizenship.
Right.
Get the heck out of here.
And political opponents.
Also. And political opponents. Yeah.
And opposition. So that's democracy.
Well, and I want to say
that's Kamala Harris's
we've been
democracy
covering
in
this.
action.
we've been covering this since last February, right? When this all started happening, and every single story that comes out of there has fallen apart. And it's so crazy that people still believe a narrative that Russia's going to just go do this, and then they're going to go to Poland, then they're going to go to all these other countries and start taking it over, while it's actually what we are doing. And it's like they still believe this narrative. And I just don't understand how so many people can still believe it when all of these stories fall apart. But
it's propaganda.
It is.
It's total. That's the reason.
It's almost like once a media organization reports something, whenever they go back and they make an edit, it's down at the bottom, edited. Nobody sees that stuff. And it's the same with this stuff. That's why they like to get the information out so quickly and say these things, because then you have a vast number of people that just put it as their main narrative, and they will die protecting it. And then we that do the digging find out the truth, but then those people won't listen to us because they've already planted that flag on the propaganda.
Yes, and even, when I search the news for the newsletter and I'm writing for these stories, I really look closely to see, is the mainstream media saying this, or are they being really careful about attributing this to somebody else and passing it off as their own words? And most of the time they report this in a way that gives them an out, but the average reader won't notice it. The average reader will absorb it as fact. And it's just, if that's not your job, if you're not trained for this, I too was a newspaper writer, then you might not notice, and then you would just swallow all of this stuff.
No, isn't it Mark Twain that said, a lie, or what is it? A lie can spread all the way around the world while truth is still putting on its pants in the morning.
Something like that.
That's exactly what happens here. So when people are tuning into CNN, or they're reading the New York Times, or they're reading other propaganda or mouthpieces of the intelligence community, or they're reading the BBC or other just total garbage newspapers and news sources, they're getting their first run of these stories, and then they're not going to get the nuance later when it's actually totally discredited and the stories come out, the truth actually comes out. That's the sad part here. So they keep buying this kind of garbage, hook, line, and sinker. And a Ukrainian journalist was discredited. Watch this. So this is amazing. Was this Ukrainian journalist part of the mouthpiece of the media, the state, was exposed by locals, like the local babushkas, the local ladies there, were basically saying, they're saying, no, we know who's attacking us. And the journalist was basically pretending that the town was being shelled by the Russian army. But the ladies were quick to call her out and correct her. Watch this. This is an amazing moment here. All right, there will be a one-sided ceasefire, but as you can see, there's no ceasefire, no matter how strange it is. There is.
Oh, come on.
In the Kharkov region, it had stopped. It's just come back from Kharkov. Almost only missiles, but shot at everyone. And Lvov and Kiev, everyone shot at with missiles.
And we are shot at by Ukrainian tanks.
Are you sure these are Ukrainian tanks?
Yes, of course. Just like at this city, there he stands and shoots at the city.
And this is also Ukrainians?
These are also Ukrainians, because Russians are this way and the tank is shooting from that way.
Boy, that journalist was like, I think I'm going to be losing my job. I'm supposed to be telling people that this is amazing. This is the propaganda that people are seeing. So even a Ukrainian journalist is there covering this, and she's like, oh, we got to lie about this because this is...
She's like, knock it off.
And so the SBU is likely going to come to her house later and make her disappear. That's what happens.
Don't say that. And maybe she's well covered.
No, I mean, but the SBU and the United States State Department on their website, when they cataloged Ukraine as one of the most corrupt countries in Europe, on the U.S. State Department's website in 2021, you can clearly see what they say about the SBU disappearing journalists, disappearing people. And so this is exactly what they do. And as Douglas McGregor was saying on our show just the other day, these are the people that disappear. Like, these are the people, sadly, where they round them up. If there's people leaving the battlefield, they leave. This is what ends up happening. We also heard the same from Larry Johnson, former CIA analyst, who said the same thing. So if these people are defecting, these people are not towing the company line, they suddenly disappear, sadly. Unbelievable. So Russia was targeting civilians or not? That's a question. It hardly matters to Western nations, though, which pledged more weapons in the aftermath of this event over the weekend. So we saw this apartment attack, and then immediately, the West is like, see, that's why we got to send Leopard tanks. That's right there, that apartment complex, shelled by who? It doesn't matter who shelled that building. They got
20, but they didn't get the fast ones, so let's send them faster stuff.
Yeah.
Basically. Okay, got it.
Well, and I just want to do a kind of shameless plug here. This is why it's important to share these videos, because like I watch a lot of other independent journalists, and a lot of them are polarizing figures. And those of you that watch them probably know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to name any names, but like Clayton and Natali, like they just deliver the news in a very digestible way. And the thing is, like, that's the only way you're going to get people to get beyond the propaganda is to share this stuff. So people that can't support financially, or even if you can, sharing these videos and getting them out to people helps us more than you know, and it helps spread that message. Because like Clayton was saying, if this message is spread enough, we could potentially be responsible for stopping some of these things from happening.
Yeah, just like we saw, you're right about that. So if you share this video with someone, just, I don't know, click the share button, share it out via text message to a friend, a family member that might be interested in learning about this stuff. But just like when we were covering the CDC, just like when we're talking about the vaccines, just like when we're talking about boosters, etc., like the fact that maybe someone stopped getting one of these things and may have saved their life because they saw something that we covered here on the show that they might not have gotten from CNN.
Right.
That is amazing. Like someone maybe didn't have some kind of adverse event because of something we shared here. That's amazing.
Sure. And I think a lot of people feel, I was talking to a friend recently who said, I've been really uncomfortable with this war in Ukraine and I wasn't sure exactly why. Well, if you start to dig into exactly what the Ukrainian army is up to, what they represent, and how the West is dragging this along, costing Ukrainian lives, then you'll see exactly why you feel uncomfortable. But you can't put a pin on it if you're reading the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times or CNN.
No, you can't, because you literally have an American. I saw a report from an American Special Forces who joined up with Ukrainians on the Ukrainian side, and he left and he said, you wouldn't believe like what's on their website. Or he was teaming up with these soldiers. He ended up opening up their laptop, and on the guy's laptop he had pictures of the Third Reich. Like he literally, like he's like, oh wait a minute, that's who I'm joining up with, and Americans don't even know about that. Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.